Nearly 80 years. That's how long this mystery has haunted America. 8 decades of questions without answers. 8 decades of a family searching for the truth. 8 decades of theories that range from the plausible to the terrifying. The disappearance of the SodderChildren remains officially unsolved. But over the years, investigators, journalists, and true crime enthusiasts have developed several theories about what really happened on that Christmas Eve in 1945. Some are more plausible than others. All of them are disturbing, and one of them might just be true. Let's start with theory number 1, Mafia involvement. George Sodder was not a quiet man. He had opinions, and he wasn't afraid to share them. His outspoken criticism of the Italian fascist dictator Benito Mussolini had made him enemies in the close-knit Italian immigrant community of Fayetteville. Enemies who didn't forget, enemies who waited. Mussolini and his fascist regime had deep ties to organized crime in both Italy and America. The Mafia didn't just tolerate fascism in some cases, they worked with it, and they had long memories. Could the Mafia have targeted the Sodder family as retaliation for George's outspoken views? Think about the threats George received. The insurance salesman who promised his house would go up in smoke. That same man sitting on the coroner's jury. Those aren't coincidences. Those are connections. If the Mafia was involved, the children could have been taken anywhere, raised by other families, given new identities, scattered across the country like seeds in the wind. The photograph of Lewis that arrived in the 1960s could have been a message or a taunt. A way of saying, we have them, and there's nothing you can do about it. But here's the problem with this theory. If the Mafia was responsible, why was there never a demand or ransom note? The Mafia isn't silent. They would have wanted something, money, power, or silence. Unless the goal was pure revenge, to take the children, raise them, and let the parents suffer forever. That sounds exactly like something organized crime would do. Theory number 2 is simpler, yet harder to accept. The children died in the fire. The 1945 investigation wasn't a cover-up, but simply incompetent. Modern fire professionals noted the site examination was woefully inadequate by any standard. In 1949, a more thorough search found small objects, fragments of vertebrae, human bone. This was it. Proof. The children had been there all along. But the story takes another strange turn. These fragments were sent to the Smithsonian. A pathologist concluded they were most likely from dirt George used to fill the memorial site. Not from the children themselves, just dirt that looked like human vertebra. Jenny Sodder's experiments with animal bones had convinced her that the fire could not have completely destroyed 5 human bodies. She burned bones in her stove. She burned them in open fires. They never disappeared. They always remained recognizable. But skeptics have a response to this. House fires, they point out, can reach extreme temperatures, much hotter than an open fire in a backyard. And the coal stored on the Sodder property may have intensified the blaze beyond normal expectations. Coal burns hot, very hot. The children's bodies, in this theory, were simply incinerated beyond recognition, turned to ash, turned to nothing. And in the chaos and grief of the aftermath, with a volunteer fire department and no forensic training, the evidence was missed, overlooked, destroyed. It's a simple explanation. It requires no conspiracy, no mafia, no kidnapping, just tragedy and incompetence. But here's the problem. This theory struggles to explain everything else. The ladder, missing, found 75 feet away in a ditch. The phone line, cut, not burned, cut. The trucks, both dead, both useless. The strange phone call, just hours before the fire. A woman laughing. The fireballs. Seen by a bus driver. Multiple fireballs flying toward the house. The mysterious object in the ashes. What Jenny found. What George believed was a hand grenade. All of those details exist. All of them were documented at the time. All of them were reported. They cannot be dismissed as coincidence. They cannot be explained away by incompetence. Too many things went wrong that night. Too many things that should have worked, didn't. Too many things that should have been there, weren't. Theory 3 tries to connect the dots. Theory 3. The fire was set by someone with a personal grudge against George Sodder. Someone who wanted to hurt him financially and emotionally. Someone who saw taking his children as the ultimate revenge. The insurance salesman is the obvious suspect. He made specific threats. He had access to the property. He knew the family's routines. And he sat on the jury that declared the fire an accident. He literally helped decide that no further investigation was needed. Think about the perfect crime. You threaten a man, his house burns down, his children disappear, and then you sit on the jury that rules it all an accident. No investigation, no questions, no justice. But if he was responsible, why was he never investigated? Why did no one ever question him about his threats? The records of the case have gaps. Gaps that scream of deliberate obfuscation. Pages missing, witness statements lost, evidence that simply vanished. Someone wanted this case closed. Someone with influence, someone with power. And then there's Theory 4, the most disturbing of all. Theory 4, the children were taken by a child trafficking ring. Perhaps they were sold to families who wanted children but couldn't have their own. Perhaps they were raised in complete ignorance of their true identities. Perhaps they grew up thinking they were someone else entirely, with different parents, different names, different lives. The hotel sighting in Charleston fits this pattern perfectly. For children, Italian-speaking adults who wouldn't let anyone near them. A hasty departure in the early morning. This wasn't a family vacation. This was a transfer, a handoff, a moment in a much larger operation. If this was trafficking, the children might have been moved quickly. Another state, another city, another life. By the time anyone thought to look, they could have been anywhere. Canada, Mexico, another country entirely. And then there's that photograph. Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie. A haunting clue. If Louis Sodder survived under another name, why write I love brother Frankie? Who was Frankie? A brother in his new life? A friend? Or a code? A message that only his real family would understand. The family tried for years to trace the photograph's origin. They showed it to handwriting experts. They contacted the Postal Service, hired private detectives, and followed every possible lead. Nothing. The photograph remained a mystery. The Postal Service couldn't identify its origin. The handwriting was never matched. The image too grainy for definitive identification. It remains one of the most tantalizing clues in the entire case, and one of the most frustrating. In 1947, 2 years after the fire, Jenny Sodder did something desperate. She wrote a letter to FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, begging him to reopen the investigation. She told him everything: the threats, the latter, the trucks, the phone line, the sightings, all of it. The response, when it finally came, was devastating. The FBI declined to get involved. Citing lack of jurisdiction, they said the case remained with local authorities. The same local authorities who had already closed it, ignored witnesses, and allowed bias. Decades passed, witnesses died, evidence decayed, memories faded. But the children's faces, frozen in those grainy photographs, never changed. They remained forever young, forever missing, forever waiting for answers that never came. Morris would be in his 90s today, if he lived. Martha would be 99, Louis 98, Jenny 98, Betty 98. They are forever frozen in childhood. Forever 14, 12, 10, 8, and 5. Forever the children on the billboard. One question remains at the heart of this mystery. The question that every investigator, journalist, and true crime enthusiast has asked for nearly 80 years. If the children survived, why did they never come home? Why didn't Morris reach out when he turned 18? Why didn't Martha try to find her family when she became an adult? Why did only one photograph appear, and then nothing? The answer, if it exists, may be even darker than we imagine. Perhaps they didn't know who they really were. Perhaps they were raised by families who told them a different story. Perhaps they grew up believing they were someone else entirely. Or perhaps they did try to come home. Perhaps that photograph was the first attempt. Perhaps Louis was reaching out, testing the waters, seeing if anyone was still looking. And perhaps something or someone stopped him from trying again. The possibilities are endless, and they are all terrifying. That's next, the final chapter, the legacy of the SodderChildren. We'll continue after this short break.